This is a Hot Pie Original.
Now, in my conversation with Contessa Brewer, what I didn't see coming, you either, but it's fascinating and it needs to be talked about. It needs to be, the curtain needs to be pulled back. It's great work on her part. So what you didn't see coming leads to an important question. And you should feel uncomfortable. The entire story may make you want to look away, may say, I don't want to be burdened with this. So it should make you uncomfortable. But these are, remember, for all of us, these are our police officers. These are our prosecutors. These are our judges. These are our jails. And so we have skin in the game. So this incredibly important question should be addressed. And I had no idea this was going on. And it's pretty fascinating what is happening. But the basic question is this: before you even know what we're about to talk about, ask yourself a fundamental question. You can ask yourself probably in a couple different ways. And don't blow off the question. What do you, the taxpayer, what do you want to criminalize? And it sounds broad, but ask yourself that question, because I think your response, should be broad as well. But what do you want to criminalize? Think of it this way. What is your goal in criminalizing? I didn't ask you whether you approve. Didn't ask you whether or not you think it's a good idea. Didn't ask you whether or not you think it's healthy behavior. Didn't ask you whether or not you find it moral. The answer to all of those may be no. Remember the question, circle back. What is your goal in criminalizing? Now follow what she's talking about.
So I want to be clear. It's not decriminalizing prostitution. It's refusing to prosecute prostitutes. It still plans to prosecute Johns, the customers, and the pimps, aka the managers. And it's not just Manhattan. Brooklyn and I believe the Bronx have already made a move toward this direction. San Francisco, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Seattle. It's happening in places around the country where they say this just doesn't make sense. And you really don't find a strong argument for prosecuting the people who sell sex to make a living or in a lot of cases to survive. However, though you have, and I interviewed in my story last night for CNBC, two people who both support Manhattan's move to stop prosecuting prostitution, but very differently on prosecuting the Johns and the pimps. So they said, if you drive our customers underground, you force us into the shadows. You don't do anything to bring us out of the shadows and to make us safer if you force our customers to be criminals. And then on the other hand, the woman who has studied this and worked in this industry, not in this industry, has been an advocate for human rights for decades, said, we're talking about the commercial exploitation of women's bodies. And I would broaden it out and say what she means is human bodies, because there are transgender people and men who work in the industry as well.
So Father's Day is coming up. You're doing the gift boxes. Yep. So here's something that's certainly not a tie or a sweater or a pair of socks. Not a bad idea.
Well, I think it's great if you don't know what to get your dad. Get him some hot sauce. That way he can prove how much of a man he is, right? And this hot sauce will go great, and your dad will love it. So I think it makes a great gift box. You can go to our website and find those there. It come in packs of 4. It's a great box you just give to your dad and say, listen, here, Dad, thanks for being my dad. And it's not that sock that's just going to go in a drawer. It's not that gift card that's going to go in a wallet, never be used again. It's actually something he can share with his friends. And so I think it's a great idea.
All right, order a box now. It's atxhotsauce.com, atxhotsauce.com. And so I went back and read New York Times story. And this is being done in more places than I think most of us realize. I had no idea this was happening anyway. Other jurisdictions in and beyond New York have also taken steps. Brooklyn is one of those. So the district attorney in Manhattan, in not prosecuting, to be clear, said this: over the last decade, we've learned from those with lived experience and from our own experience on the ground. Criminally prosecuting prostitution does not make us safer and too often achieves the opposite result by further marginalizing vulnerable New Yorkers. So they're going to vacate warrants, they're going to dismiss cases, they're going to erase convictions. And so if you stop here, now, first of all, let's keep this in perspective as well. People in Texas, I'm in Texas, you can appreciate this. This is the nanny state. This is the nanny state. This is the place where you're going to get reelected, certainly as a prosecutor, but as a lawmaker as well. If people don't like the behavior, you win points by criminalizing the behavior. This is a state that will be the last place on the planet that will legalize recreational marijuana. And it would be fascinating. And I'm going to say it's a good idea, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be politically incorrect. But let's step back as taxpayers and start to ask ourselves those fundamental questions. Again, what is it you want to criminalize? What is your goal in criminalizing consenting adults? People probably don't like using the term victimless, but we can't fix, as taxpayer, the circumstances necessarily. What we do have jurisdiction over, that is the people we put in office and what we spend our money on. And criminalizing consenting adults is not worth our time and money, I would argue. In fact, I think it's a terrible idea. And we have plenty of evidence that it's a terrible idea. This is a fascinating position to take. And I'm not at any point minimizing the circumstances, not saying that it's morally right, not suggesting that somebody do it any more than saying you should do drugs or eat 5 cheeseburgers or cheat on your husband or wife. The question is not that. The question is not what is a bad idea. The question is not what is immoral behavior. The question is not what's unhealthy. The question is, what do you want to spend your money on to have your cops arrest, your prosecutors try and convict, your judges convict, and you build jails for people involved in consenting acts? War on drugs was a failure. Have we not learned that filling our jails with people for victimless crimes is a waste of your money? Have we not learned these things are going to happen underground regardless? I mean, I often say, cannabis is not my deal. I don't care that it's your deal. It's not worth my money. It's not worth my time. If that were the case, I'd spend money to stop you from eating cheeseburgers, but I'm not going to do that either. So it's not worth, the war on drugs is not worth my time and money. I may not think it's healthy or moral, but as a taxpayer, it's not the best use of my taxpayer dollars, to the point of her story. And I would take it even a step further and say that, this idea of we're not going to choose who to prosecute or not to prosecute, we need to, across the board, decriminalize, get it above board. I mean, have we not learned that more things that go underground, more things that create a black market are because they're going to happen anyway? Okay, we can't fix the morality. So things are going to happen anyway. People are going to make bad decisions anyway. But if they're consenting and they are, in essence, victimless, why are we prosecuting? What's in it for you? Rather than getting something above board, no matter how immoral or distasteful you find it, getting above board, having people pay taxes and run the industries above board, how would that not be a safer path for everyone? Didn't say a moral path. Didn't say a healthy path, a safer path for everyone. I'm arguing that criminalizing stuff like this, consenting adults, immoral as you want to say, consenting adults, it is not worth our money to criminalize. Now, I don't, as usual, I'm taking some would say, well, you're not looking at this to her story the way they are in New York, and you're looking at this as a taxpayer. Yes, that's true. That's true. That's all that we have. It's what we have. If you want to volunteer, if you want to stop the human trafficking and all that, of course, absolutely. But if the question is, what do we want to criminalize? That's the basic fundamental question. We're asking ourselves as taxpayers what we want to spend money on. And I think this is one of those things. It'll never happen here. It'll never happen here. If somebody were to even introduce legislation like this, they're done. They're out of office. No chance, no way. Because we automatically, in the nanny state, we automatically say, if I don't like what you're doing, if my friends and I, my family, my church, whomever, find what you do distasteful, I want someone to criminalize it. It's a bad return on investment. I think we've got enough data to prove it's not doing any good. It's not worth the time. It's not worth the money for anybody anywhere.